Welcome to Jung at Night, where we explore the profound depths of Carl Jung's transformative psychology as you drift into peaceful sleep. Tonight's journey takes us into the architecture of inner strength, discovering how to build a mind so resilient, so deeply rooted in self-understanding, that it becomes truly unshakable. Let these ideas settle gently into your unconscious as you rest, knowing that even in sleep, transformation continues. Close your eyes, breathe deeply, and let's begin. Why do some people remain standing while others crumble at a single word, a setback, or a disapproving glance? Carl Jung believed the answer lies not in greater strength, but in deeper self-understanding. While most spend their lives avoiding the shadowed corners within, truly resilient individuals step directly into those spaces without fear, without judgment, seeking only to understand who they really are. Jung once observed that our lives are guided by the unconscious, and until we illuminate it, we will mistake our patterns for fate. But fate is not an iron chain binding us to predetermined outcomes. It is a mirror reflecting what we have not yet found the courage to confront. Every surge of anger, every emotional wound carries a message, an invitation to enter the inner world where all genuine human power resides. To build a mind so strong that others instinctively respect its boundaries, you don't need to appear cold or distant. You need to become awakened, deep enough to understand your own nature, calm enough not to be disturbed by external turbulence. When you touch that authentic power, you no longer need to prove anything to anyone, because your very presence becomes a quiet declaration of self-mastery. And that is what we will explore tonight. How to build a mind of true strength. One that doesn't waver before praise, doesn't collapse before criticism, doesn't lose itself amid life's inevitable storms. Because when you understand the genuine source of inner fortitude, you realize that no one can truly harm you unless you grant them that power. You don't need to fight anyone. You only need to awaken. As we begin, I have a small challenge for you. If you're truly committed to this journey of self-development, leave a comment saying, "I accept the challenge," or simply "accept challenge." Now, let's move into the first part of tonight's exploration. Part 1. Recognizing the shadow. There exists a part of you that you constantly try to avoid, the part that triggers shame, anger, or feelings of inadequacy. You suppress it, pretend it doesn't exist, and wear masks of positivity, strength, or kindness. But here lies the paradox. This very part you're fleeing from contains your truest power. Carl Jung called it the shadow. He once said, "One does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious." The shadow isn't something inherently evil. It is simply the rejected portion of the soul, everything you refuse to acknowledge about yourself. Envy, anger, fear, the need for control, the craving for recognition, even the vulnerabilities you deny. Every time you say, "That's not me," you push another fragment of yourself into darkness, and then that shadow grows, consuming your will, beginning to control you from within without your conscious awareness. Think about the times you've lost your temper over a minor comment, felt envious of someone's success, or experienced irritation when others received attention. It's not because they did something wrong. It's your shadow projecting outward. You only react intensely because you see in them a part of yourself you haven't accepted yet. You deny it silently, but it remains there, whispering through emotional reactions, impulsive words, and unconscious choices. And if you don't look it directly in the face, it will control you like a puppet that believes itself free. Pause here for a moment. Don't rush past this. Close your eyes for a few seconds and recall the last time you felt angry, small, or envious. Try asking yourself, which part of me is speaking through this emotion? If you're brave enough not to evade that question, you've just taken the first step toward truly seeing yourself. Recognizing the shadow is not a comfortable process. It's like looking in a mirror and seeing not only your familiar face, but also the distorted parts, the cracks, the aspects you once denied. But it is precisely there, in that raw honesty, that power is born, because you cannot master what you refuse to confront. Imagine walking through a forest and hearing an unfamiliar noise. You fear it because you don't know its source. But when you dare to shine a light on it, you realize it's just wind moving through branches. Your inner shadow works the same way. When you haven't seen it, it makes you tremble. When you dare to look, it loses its controlling power. Recognizing the shadow is the first step to reclaiming sovereignty over your own mind. Someone might ask, but why touch that dark part? Why not just focus on the positive? Because light has no meaning if you've never known darkness. Forced positivity is just another way to evade reality. Truly strong people aren't those who are perpetually cheerful, but those who dare to touch the pain and learn to listen to the message hidden within it. The darkness doesn't come to destroy you. It comes to show you what remains unhealed. For example, when you feel hurt because someone abandons you, the real pain doesn't lie in their action, but in your long-standing fear of abandonment, perhaps from childhood when you weren't truly heard or seen. The shadow stores those memories, and every time a similar situation arises, it awakens to remind you that the wound still exists. If you evade it, it will repeat endlessly. If you look it straight in the eye, it will gradually dissolve. In Jungian psychology, the journey of confronting the shadow isn't a battle to eradicate the dark part, but a journey of integration, allowing light and darkness to coexist in balance. Because without darkness, you cannot have depth. A person who only knows light becomes shallow and fragile because they don't understand the true complexity of human nature. But one who has faced the shadow becomes serene, profound, and steadfast because they no longer fear themselves. Jung believed that each person has the potential to become whole when they unify the two sides of themselves. Such a person is not easily provoked, not easily manipulated, because they know who they are and who they can become. They see anger, but don't let it dominate. They feel fear, but don't let it halt their steps. They don't try to become better than others, but only strive to become more true to themselves. Look at the people you once considered strong. They may not be the type who always smile or display constant positivity, but you sense in them an admirable stillness, as if they have traversed dark regions you have not yet dared to touch. They don't need to prove anything because they know true strength does not lie in defeating others, but in mastering the inner struggles within themselves. That is why Jung called recognizing and reconciling with the shadow the first step of awakening. You cannot build a strong mind if your foundation is fear, and you cannot become unshakable if you are still fleeing from the dark part of yourself. True strength does not come from accumulating knowledge or discipline, but from the courage to confront what you do not want to see. When you begin to look at the shadow, you will find it is not only frightening but full of vitality. Within it lie the parts you once neglected: passion, creative instinct, primal courage, powerful intuition. All that was once suppressed now awaits release. Recognizing the shadow is not just facing fear, but unlocking the greatest potential within you. And then one day, when someone tries to hurt you, when the world hurls criticism, judgment, or contempt at you, you will smile. Not because you feel nothing, but because you know exactly who is speaking in your mind, the wounded part, the fearful part, or the healed part. When you know that, no one can manipulate your emotions anymore. Part 2. Overcoming the victim archetype. When you realize that the fears, angers, and weaknesses within are not enemies, but mirrors reflecting human nature, another truth will gradually emerge. You realize that much of the pain you have endured does not come from circumstances, but from the role you unconsciously choose for yourself. That is the role of the victim. Jung called this an archetype, a deep psychological pattern existing in the collective unconscious. And the victim is one of the most powerful archetypes governing human life. The victim archetype is not a foreign concept. You see it everywhere. In the person who constantly complains that life is unfair, in the one who always blames the past, parents, society, relationships, or fate. And sometimes you see it in yourself when you say, "I can't. I would have been different if not for." The victim archetype is very subtle because it cloaks itself in the appearance of legitimacy. It makes you believe you are merely the injured party, that everything that happens is someone else's fault. But behind that is a cold truth. When you cast yourself as the victim, you also strip yourself of the power to master your own life. Jung once said, "I am not what happened to me. I am what I choose to become." But to choose, you must be conscious. And that consciousness only comes when you dare to look at how the victim archetype is manipulating you. Because no one is truly a victim forever. Only someone who has not yet realized they could stand up. In analytical psychology, Jung believed that every archetype has two faces, the light and the dark. The victim archetype in its light face helps us recognize pain, empathize, and awaken compassion. But in its dark face, it turns us into dependence on our own suffering. We begin to live through trauma, seeking attention, pity, or validation from others to fill the inner void. It makes us confuse suffering with proof of existence. And that is when the shadow of the victim devours our true self. You can see this in those who have been betrayed and then carry a deep belief that everyone will leave me. They build walls to protect themselves, but unwittingly imprison themselves in isolation. Or in those who have failed once and then never dare to try again because they believe life is not for me. They think they are defending themselves, but in reality, they are protecting their own cage. And that cage is built not from steel, but from distorted beliefs about the self. Carl Jung called this identification with the archetype. When a person no longer knows where the self ends and the role begins, you are no longer the one experiencing pain. You become the pain itself. And when that happens, you lose the ability to transform. Jung believed that the prerequisite for escaping the archetype's grip is to become conscious of being gripped by it. Because only when you recognize, "I am playing the victim," can you begin to rewrite the script. A friend of mine who works in an advertising company always complained to me that she felt her boss favored others. Every time someone else got a big project, she would get angry and think, "They never value me." But one day, instead of continuing to complain, she paused and asked herself, "Why am I not getting big projects? What can I do differently?" She began proactively suggesting ideas, seeking feedback, and taking responsibility for her work. The way she stepped out of that defeated role changed everything. The sense of helplessness vanished when she realized true power begins with stopping the blame and choosing action. So, the answer to the question how to break free will not be by denying the pain or forcing yourself to be stronger, but by dialoguing with the emotions. Try looking straight at the voice in your head every time you think negatively. Ask it who is speaking like this. You will realize it is not you. It is the inner child within you, once abandoned, once unheard, believing that only through suffering would it receive attention from others. And when you begin to listen to that child with empathy instead of judgment, it will no longer need to scream. At that point, the victim archetype dissolves, making way for a new energy, the energy of the creator. The creator does not ask, "Why is this happening to me?" They ask, "What can I learn from this?" The very moment you shift from the first question to the second, you have left the victim role and entered the journey of mastery. For example, some people have endured poverty, abuse, or devastating loss, but they do not let that past define them. They transform it into motivation to help others, to write a new story. They do not deny the pain, they transmute it into strength. Jung would call this the alchemical process of the soul, where leaden suffering is turned into golden wisdom. But remember, overcoming the victim archetype does not mean becoming numb. Truly strong people are not those who never fall, but those who know how to rise and understand why they fell. They still feel hurt, but they are not defined by the hurt. They still know pain, but they choose conscious responses. That is the difference between reflex and freedom. From a Jungian perspective, every time you refuse the victim role, you move closer to the self, the center of the psyche. Where all archetypes harmonize in balance, there you are no longer shaped by circumstances, but the one shaping them. You no longer seek a savior because you understand that you are the one who saves yourself. Try imagining if from tomorrow you stop saying "I can't" and replace it with "I choose not to do this right now." The second statement carries the same content but holds power because it acknowledges that you have the right to choose, and that right to choose is the first step of inner freedom. All freedom begins with this realization: I am no longer a victim. And then you realize no one has ever truly hurt you. They only touched the wounds you have not yet healed. No one has ever taken your power. You only once forgot that it belongs to you. When you remember that, when you stop playing the victim and return to being the creator of your own life, you need to prove nothing. The stillness within you is already proof of a strength that no one can shake. Part 3. Accessing the collective unconscious. That is the door leading to a deeper layer of the mind where not only you are present. There you realize that your fears, beliefs, dreams, and symbols that have appeared in your life do not entirely belong to you as an individual. They are the flow of thousands of years of human consciousness operating within you. Jung called that deep layer the collective unconscious. The collective unconscious is not a mystical concept. It is the shared spiritual repository of humanity where all experiences, memories, and primal emotions have accumulated across thousands of generations. Every human being is born inheriting this treasure trove like a spiritual inheritance. You do not need to learn to fear the dark, to love the light, to tremble before beauty, or shiver at the face of death. It is all already pre-programmed in the deepest recesses of your mind. And it is from that repository that archetypes form, universal symbolic images that appear in dreams, myths, religions, and even in modern life today. You may never have read Greek mythology, yet you still understand the feeling of Prometheus, the one who dared to steal fire from the gods to give to humanity. Because deep in the collective unconscious, you too carry the archetype of the rebel, the challenger of limits in pursuit of the light of knowledge. You may never have encountered a figure like Athena, but you still recognize the archetype of the wise one within yourself. When you choose reason over instinct, when you hold stillness amid chaos, the collective unconscious is what connects you to all of humanity, no matter the century or culture in which you live. It explains why a child anywhere fears the night, yearns to be loved, imagines heroes, mothers, and death. Those images do not come from the external world. They are the ancient language of the soul, the spiritual heritage you carry within. But the strange thing is, most of us live our entire lives without ever touching this deep layer. We are trapped on the surface where reason, logic, and the ego hold sway. We think we are choosing, but in truth, the collective unconscious whispers behind every action, every emotion, every dream. You think you love someone because they fit perfectly. But deep down, you may be guided by the archetype of the anima or animus, the unconscious image of the ideal feminine or masculine within. You think you want success to affirm your worth. But in reality, you are living the archetype of the hero, battling your own dragon to find the treasure, which Jung believed symbolizes self-realization. Understanding this is a turning point because when you begin to see the archetypes operating within you, you are no longer their puppet. You start choosing how to express them consciously. For instance, the mother archetype might drive you to sacrifice yourself to exhaustion for others. But when you recognize it, you can transform that energy from blind sacrifice to compassionate care, from control to mindful nurturing. Or the warrior archetype, If unconscious, it makes you aggressive, bent on victory at any cost. But when you master it, it becomes the strength to protect boundaries, to stand for what is right without being ruled by hatred. Within each person exist dozens of such archetypes: the teacher, the healer, the betrayer, the wanderer, the king, the warrior, the creator. They come and go, shifting with time and circumstance. The issue is not to eliminate them, but to learn to call upon the right one when needed. Like a skilled director, you do not let a single actor dominate the stage. You know when to let the warrior appear, when the healer needs to speak, when the wise one should lead. A strong mind does not try to control everything, but one that knows how to work with the unconscious rather than being controlled by it. An intriguing example: in moments when you feel lost, unsure of who you are or what you live for, that is not a sign of failure, but a call from the collective unconscious. Like the heroes in myths, you are entering the dark night of the soul, where you must leave the safe confines of the ego to find your true self. At that deep level, you will encounter strange symbols in dreams: a forest, an old house, a guide, a snake, a flowing stream. Do not dismiss them. Jung believed every dream symbol is a message from the unconscious, a map guiding the journey of awakening. And if in this moment an image, dream, or memory has just flickered into view, do not ignore it. Write it down or share it in the comments as a small fragment of the shared ocean we are exploring together. Because sometimes what you share is not just yours, but the whisper of the collective unconscious seeking to be seen through your very story. When you learn to listen to that symbolic language through dreams, intuition, and strange synchronicities, you begin to unlock the inner treasure. You no longer live solely by reason, but by the ancient wisdom of the collective soul. You realize you are not alone. For every story you are living has been told by humanity for thousands of years. You are merely rewriting them in your own unique way. Amid the clamor of the world, when you achieve this, you touch a power that logic cannot explain, an intelligence beyond the individual. Jung called it inner guidance. When you connect to this deep layer, your decisions no longer stem from fear or ambition, but from a profound knowing, as if your soul already knew the way. Try imagining you are a drop of water in the ocean. When you see yourself only as a small drop, you feel weak, isolated, and afraid. But when you realize you belong to the ocean, that the current within you is the current of the vast sea, you fear no more. That is the experience of touching the collective unconscious, union with the spiritual source of humanity. When you live from that depth, you no longer react as a small individual. You act as part of something greater. And that is when your mind becomes as steadfast as a mountain. No one can shake you, because you are no longer just you. You are the crystallization of thousands of years of wisdom, the voice of the collective unconscious made conscious. Part 4. The Journey of Individuation, the Pinnacle of Inner Strength. Here, you enter the deepest and most sacred stage of the spiritual journey that Carl Jung called individuation. If accessing the collective unconscious connects you to humanity's shared wisdom, then the journey of individuation is the destination where all those parts merge into one unified whole. Individuation is not about becoming the best version of yourself as the modern world preaches. It is the journey of returning to who you truly are, whole, unified, and authentic. Jung believed every person is born with a soul map, a unique path no one else can walk for them. But most of us spend our lives pleasing others, fitting into societal molds, becoming what the world expects. We build the ego as a mask for survival, gradually losing the call from deep within, the call of the self, the total self. Jung said, "The self is not a grander ego, but the true center of the entire person where light and shadow, conscious and unconscious, individual and collective, harmonize into a unified whole. It is the place where you no longer tear yourself between I should and I want, between right and wrong, between what they think and who I am. When you touch that state, you no longer need to play any role. You become your soul itself. But that journey is not easy. To ascend, you must let go. Let go of the roles that once saved you from hurt but now imprison you. Let go of the illusions about who you think you must become. The process of individuation is not accumulation but divestment. Step by step, you peel away the layers that are not yours until only the original, pure, and most authentic essence remains. One on the path of individuation often goes through phases of crisis. At such times, you realize that the success, fame, or self-image you once pursued no longer suffices to define life's meaning. You begin seeking something deeper, wholeness, and it is precisely there that the journey of individuation begins. Try looking back at your life. How many times have you done something just because you should, must, or everyone does? How many times have you felt you were living without truly living, merely acting in a pre-written script? Jung believed those moments of restlessness are not failures, but the soul's call. The soul does not shout. It whispers, "This is not me." And when you are brave enough to listen, you begin returning to your true path, the path of individuation. On that journey, you will rediscover parts of yourself you once neglected. Perhaps the creativity stifled by fear of failure, perhaps the passion extinguished by the pressures of practical life, or the deep intuition denied by reason. Each time you dare to listen and call them back, you are gradually integrating yourself. And the miracle is, the more original you become, the more deeply connected you feel to the world. Because only when you are truly yourself can you truly see others. In the collective unconscious, Jung observed that every culture tells of this journey. The hero's departure from home, confrontation with monsters, and return with treasure. But Jung emphasized that the treasure is not outside, it is within the hero. The monster you must face is not a real enemy, but the fear, doubt, and old patterns in your own mind. And when you conquer them, the reward is not glory but awakening. Think of the artist who finds their unique style after years of copying others, or the one who collapses in crisis then rises to live an entirely different life. Not for anyone else, but because it feels this is me. That is the manifestation of individuation. Not everyone recognizes it, but every time you do something truly aligned with your soul, you draw closer to that pinnacle. Individuation does not make you perfect. It makes you real. You still have flaws, still have shadow, but you no longer fear them. You understand that shadow is not opposed to light. It is the indispensable part that gives light meaning. When you accept both, you attain wholeness, the highest state of the human psyche. And when you live from that place, everything changes. You are no longer driven by fear of loss, the need for acceptance, or the desire to prove yourself. You need not affirm your worth, for you are worthy. You need not chase light, for you are the source. Jung believed that one who reaches this stage possesses an unshakable peace, a peace that inspires awe and caution in others because they cannot fathom how you remain so steadfast in a chaotic world. That is the pinnacle of inner strength. When you no longer need to hide, control, or prove, you simply are, and in that state of being, you become strong naturally, like a mountain that needs no roar to proclaim its height. And when you arrive at that point, when you unify all parts of yourself into a coherent whole, you do not merely build a strong mind, you build an awakened mind. And that precisely is the pinnacle of inner strength, the strength of one who has passed through shadow, transcended the ego, touched the soul, and returned as an unshakable being. If what you have just heard quiets your mind, as if something within you is being called by name, hold this moment with a like or subscribe, a silent promise to your own soul that you will continue the path back to your true self. This journey is not for the intellect, but for those brave enough to heed the deepest voice in their heart. And it is here that we enter the most essential part, training the mind. How to live with a strong, clear, and profound mind. Part 5. Practicing mind training. Jung once said, "No tree, it is said, can grow to heaven unless its roots reach down to hell." And training the mind is the process of letting your roots sink deep into reality where there is pain, friction, and limitation, so that your trunk and branches can reach the heights of awareness. There are no shortcuts, no magic secrets, only persistent, steadfast practice and daily wakefulness. The first step in training the mind is to observe yourself without judgment. This is the foundation of all inner development, and it is what most of us fail to do because when a negative emotion arises, anger, fear, or envy, our natural reflex is to resist it or flee. But Jung would say, do not try to banish the shadow, look into it. Each time you observe anger without rushing to conclude I am bad or I am weak, you allow your mind to see the full picture. That gaze, untainted by judgment, is what makes the shadow dissolve on its own. A simple yet profound practice is conscious journaling to capture the inner flow. Whenever a strong emotion arises, pause and write, I am feeling this, because, and continue until you touch the deepest layer of the cause. In doing so, you bring the unconscious into the light. Jung saw this as a healing act, for language is the bridge between the unconscious and the conscious. The second step is practicing silence. Not external quiet, but inner stillness where you cease trying to control everything, cease reacting, and simply be present. You cannot build a strong mind in a noisy world if you do not know how to return to your own quiet. It may be through meditation, walking in nature, or just sitting in silence for a few minutes each day to watch thoughts pass without clinging to them. This is when you learn that you are not your thoughts. You are the one observing them. The moment you realize this, you detach from identification with the ego, and your mind begins to find freedom. Next is training the capacity to endure adversity. A weak mind shatters before suffering, while a strong mind sees suffering as material for growth. Jung worked with many patients who endured psychological trauma, and he realized that it is not those who suffer less who live better, but those who turn suffering into meaning. Each time you face a challenge, ask which part of me is being called to grow through this experience. When you stop seeing adversity as an enemy and begin seeing it as a teacher, your mind shifts to another level where every difficulty becomes an opportunity for evolution. Another method Jung particularly emphasized is active imagination. This is not daydreaming, but deliberately dialoguing with images, symbols, or figures that arise in the mind. For example, if you dream of a wolf chasing you, instead of fearing it, you might sit down, close your eyes, and re-encounter that wolf in imagination, asking it, "Who are you? What do you want to tell me?" You may be surprised by the response from within. Jung believed this is the language of the unconscious communicating with you. When you learn to listen, you are no longer ruled by it. To sustain inner steadiness, Jung also advised building a small ritual for the soul. It need not be religious or elaborate. Just a daily act that reminds you to connect with your deepest self. Writing a few lines of morning reflection, lighting a candle, walking in silence, or simply sitting before a mirror and asking, "What does my soul need today?" When these acts become ritual, they form anchors of consciousness, places you return to when the world tilts. Another important aspect of mind training is learning to tolerate ambiguity. Modern humans always want everything clear, logical, and answered. But Jung said that ambiguity is the nature of the soul. A strong mind is not one that knows all, but one that can stand firm in the unknown without panic. When you learn to live with questions rather than rushing for answers, you cultivate a profound quality. The humility of one who understands the soul is always vaster than reason. And finally, a practice few mention, conscious compassion, not just for others, but for yourself. For in the training process, there will be days of weakness, times when old ego patterns return, mistakes that seem to pull you back. But Jung would remind you, no one can reach the light without passing through their own shadow. Compassion is not indulgence, but the ability to see yourself with understanding eyes. I am learning, I am growing. That gentleness is what allows you to go the distance without breaking. Training the mind in Jungian spirit is not about becoming absolutely controlled or impassive to everything. It is the process of learning to live with all states of being, high and low, light and dark, strong and weak, while holding the inner center. That is the ultimate goal of mind training, not to make you invincible, but to let you live truly in every moment with an awakened, courageous, and unmanipulable being. And when you touch that state, the world may sway, but you will not. For you have become the very soul Jung described, one who knows how to stand firm in the darkness without losing their light. From here, the choice lies not in what you know, but in how you live with what you know. The strength you seek is not at the end of another path. It waits in every small decision. The way you look at someone with unguarded eyes. The way you stand tall when your heart still trembles. The way you keep your word to yourself when no one watches. When you dare to take responsibility for the inner voice, honor quiet boundaries, and stay loyal to what is right, even at a cost, you turn your life into living proof rather than a presentation on strength. From this moment, see each day as a small vow. Choose truth over safety, wakefulness over convenience, presence over escape. Then one day, you will realize you no longer need to seek. Every small choice you honor today is the very form of that strength. As you settle deeper into rest, let us continue our exploration of the inner landscape, moving now from the foundations of shadow work and individuation into the question that shapes everything. What would shift in your life if you truly knew your worth? Not through shallow affirmations repeated without belief, but from a realization that seeps into the very marrow of your being, becoming as natural as breathing itself. The truth is, most of us live far below our authentic value. We negotiate with our emotions as if they were bargaining chips. We tolerate relationships that drain us dry, drop by precious drop. We endure work that slowly kills our passion, one day bleeding into the next. We settle for mere crumbs of kindness because somewhere deep down, we don't believe we deserve the feast that life offers. Carl Jung, the father of analytical psychology, didn't teach self-love in cliched platitudes. He taught us to excavate the deepest layers of the unconscious, to face the shadows we've spent lifetimes denying, and to make genuine peace with ourselves. According to Jung, when you truly value yourself, you stop attracting what harms you and start drawing in what serves your highest becoming. And what is that highest good? It's the people and opportunities that resonate with the authentic energy you embody. It's a life no longer fractured and out of sync with your heart. A life where work, love, dreams, and your essence flow as one harmonious current, like a river that knows its course. In this part of our journey tonight, we'll explore why prioritizing yourself attracts entirely different outcomes, how the unconscious shapes everything you experience, and why awakening to your true nature changes not just you, but the very world that mirrors you back to yourself. Stay with me until the end, because what you're seeking might not lie in someone else's words, but in the awakening that's been waiting patiently within you all along. Number 1. The unconscious and its silent control. Have you ever wondered why you keep repeating the same patterns in relationships, always choosing people who aren't ready to love you the way you deserve? Why every time you have a genuine chance to step beyond your comfort zone, an invisible fear pulls you back like an undertow? Or why, despite having everything that should make you happy on paper, a stable situation, decent relationships, you still feel hollow inside, as if you're living someone else's carefully scripted life? Jung called this force the unconscious, and understanding it changes everything. For Jung, the unconscious isn't merely a storage bin for forgotten memories or unprocessed experiences. It's a living, breathing structure, the deeper rest of you when all masks and pretenses are stripped away. It's where everything you dare not admit to yourself resides. The parts you reject because they seem unacceptable, unfitting, or simply too painful to acknowledge. Jung didn't describe the unconscious as a dumping ground for unwanted memories, but as an operating system running silently in the background of your entire existence. The unconscious never sleeps, never stops working, and doesn't wait for your permission to act. It works tirelessly behind the scenes, recreating patterns, setting up repetitions, constructing situations that make you react the same way you always have, and you simply call it life, believing it's just how things are. A woman might repeatedly find herself in relationships with emotionally unavailable, distant partners, not because she's unlucky or cursed, but because her unconscious learned, perhaps in early childhood, that love is something incomplete, something withheld. A cold mother, an absent father. These formative experiences leave their mark not through explicit words, but through accumulated emotions that sink deep into the psyche. And emotions, Jung observed, are the primal language of the unconscious, the native tongue it speaks. In modern psychology, this aligns with research on emotional memory and attachment patterns formed in our earliest years. The mind doesn't just store factual information. It stores how you felt in moments of lack, rejection, or abandonment, then recreates similar situations in adulthood, not to punish you, but to maintain a familiar internal state, even when that state causes suffering. Jung believed we cannot be truly free while living under the unconscious's invisible control. The real danger lies in its silence, its subtle movements. You don't notice it operating. You believe your choices reflect what I genuinely want, my natural preferences, or just how life unfolds. But Jung warned us clearly. Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate. The unconscious acts like a faithful mirror, reflecting the deepest beliefs you hold about yourself. Beliefs so fundamental you barely recognize them as beliefs at all. If you believe you're not good enough, not interesting enough, not worthy of genuine love, you don't need to announce it aloud. The unconscious broadcasts that belief to the world through your body language, your gaze, the tone of your voice, and the choices you make moment by moment. It creates what might be called a vibrational field that people and situations aligned with that belief somehow recognize and approach, like finding their perfect match. I've known many intelligent, educated, genuinely kind women who repeatedly attract rude, selfish, or volatile partners. They don't consciously want men like that. They can't understand why this keeps happening. But looking back into their histories, their unconscious often carries a childhood memory of witnessing their father mistreat their mother daily, harsh words becoming the background noise of home. For that young child, love became unconsciously tied to endurance and silence, to accepting pain as proof of connection. She doesn't want this pattern as an adult, but her unconscious quietly shapes her choices according to that ancient template. In modern psychoanalytic theory, this is called repetition compulsion, the psychological urge to reenact unresolved traumas, as if unconsciously trying to rewrite the ending to finally get it right. The paradox is brutal. Until you become fully aware of what's happening beneath the surface, you'll only recreate the pain, never heal it. The unconscious doesn't just shape romantic relationships. It governs your dreams, your emotional reactions, your career choices, even physical pains that have no clear medical cause. You might see this when a woman feels inexplicably exhausted every single time she's on the verge of a real breakthrough. Or when she struggles to say no even in situations where yes clearly harms her. These aren't character weaknesses or personal failures, but signals from the unconscious, where limiting beliefs have become embedded in the body itself and in automatic emotional reflexes. Jung also described the unconscious as a realm filled with symbols and archetypal images. It doesn't communicate in logical, linear language, but through vivid images, intense emotions, and strange dreams that seem to come from nowhere. A woman who repeatedly dreams of being trapped, being watched, or running endlessly toward an unreachable destination, may be receiving a direct call from her unconscious, signaling she's living in a prison constructed from her own internal limitations. These symbolic messages are clues that, if you learn to read them with patience, reveal what's truly driving you from within, often in ways that surprise your conscious mind. Modern psychology supports Jung's insights through extensive research on the subconscious and the autonomic nervous system. Most of our perceptions of the world arise not from careful logic, but from automatic responses shaped by early experiences and stored as reflexive patterns in the nervous system. What you call gut feelings or intuition is often the unconscious speaking its truth, trying to guide you toward or away from something your conscious mind hasn't yet recognized. But the unconscious isn't your enemy, despite how it might sometimes feel. The issue is simply this: when you don't see it at work, when you remain blind to its influence, you become a puppet controlled by aspects of yourself you don't understand. Jung compared the unconscious to a hidden god operating in your life. Ignored and denied, it destroys you slowly. Acknowledged and integrated, it becomes a wellspring of light, creativity, and authentic power. This is the quiet tragedy of so many modern people. They seem to live full lives on the surface, yet deep down feel they aren't truly alive, aren't truly themselves. They repeat draining relationships, soulless workdays, and call it duty, responsibility, or just reality. Jung believed the unconscious isn't merely a storehouse of negative experiences. It's a vibrant treasury holding everything you've ever been, felt, or dreamed, but later suppressed or forgotten out of necessity or pain. The problem is profound. If you're unaware of what lies beneath the surface, those hidden parts drive the choices you think are completely natural and free, from the people you're drawn to love, to the jobs you keep despite unhappiness, from how you react to criticism, to how you see yourself reflected in the mirror each morning. In other words, the unconscious writes the script of your life while you sit in the theater, believing you're the director making conscious choices. Imagine your mind as a house with many rooms. The conscious mind is the living room, tidy and presentable, where you welcome guests and put your best self forward. But below, hidden from view, there's a basement where you've stored everything you don't want to see. Feelings of abandonment, shame, envy, suppressed desires, old dreams that seemed impossible. Carl Jung didn't tell us to destroy or ignore the unconscious basement, but to befriend it, to bring what's hidden into the light of awareness, to face the fears, the painful memories, the abandoned longings with compassion. Only then do you stop being unconsciously led by parts of yourself you don't understand. You begin to choose your life consciously, deliberately, authentically. Here's the essential truth. You cannot genuinely value yourself if you don't know who you truly are beneath all the layers. As long as the unconscious remains a shadow you refuse to look at, you're only loving a false, constructed version of yourself. And from that false foundation, everything you attract into your life will reflect that fundamental inauthenticity, mirroring back the parts you haven't yet integrated. So, attracting the best life has to offer, as Jung's wisdom suggests, doesn't start with demanding others love you more or treat you better. It begins by turning your gaze inward and asking with courage, who is actually living inside me? Who is making these decisions I think are mine? Am I choosing what I truly deserve, or just replaying a script written long ago from old wounds and forgotten fears? If this question resonates with you, if it makes you realize you're caught in patterns that repeat endlessly, consider sharing an experience in the comments below. Perhaps your courage to name it will resonate with another soul quietly living the same unspoken struggle. And in that shared recognition, healing begins. This isn't an easy journey. It demands real courage. But Jung believed that in those depths, where the unconscious finally becomes clear and conscious, you begin to wield true power over your life. And from the precise moment you choose to awaken, everything around you starts to shift naturally, not through force or manipulation, but through resonance, like tuning to a clearer frequency. So if you want to live authentically and broadcast that genuine signal to the universe, you can't just stop at declaring empty affirmations like "I am enough." You must go deeper into the places that frighten you. And to do that, you must step into the territory most people spend their entire lives carefully avoiding: the shadow. Number 2, the shadow. Within every person lies a part they try desperately to hide, a part that doesn't speak up in everyday conversations, doesn't appear in the carefully curated photos posted online, and isn't easily admitted even to those closest to them. It might be envy toward a friend's success that makes you feel small. It might be smoldering anger at being overlooked and unrecognized. It might be paralyzing loneliness felt even while sitting in a seemingly happy relationship. Carl Jung called this rejected part the shadow, and he saw it as the deep root of all inner conflict and suffering. It's the place most of us work tirelessly to avoid, where pain, shame, anger, jealousy, insecurity, and unresolved wounds gather and grow in darkness. It's the unconscious part we refuse to acknowledge because it contradicts the polished image we strive so hard to maintain for the world and for ourselves. The shadow, according to Jung, is not inherently bad or evil. It's simply the collection of all the aspects of yourself you cannot or will not accept, the parts you've deemed weak, negative, or unacceptable by societal standards or family conditioning. Anger, jealousy, selfish desires, deep insecurity, and burning resentment. All these natural human experiences get pushed into the darkness when you can't integrate them. And they're hidden away. They don't disappear or dissolve. They merely change form, returning to manipulate you in ways you never expect, controlling you from the shadows. The more fiercely you deny these parts, the stronger and more distorted they grow. Jung warned us clearly. Everyone carries a shadow, and the less it is embodied in the individual's conscious life, the blacker and denser it becomes. The shadow doesn't stay hidden forever. It manifests in daily life through intense reactions your rational mind can't control or explain. You lose your composure over a seemingly small critique that shouldn't matter. You feel threatened and diminished by another person's success, even though you know you shouldn't care. You say you're fine, everything's fine, but inside you're filled with bitterness that eats away at your peace. These emotional eruptions aren't random or meaningless. They're clear signs of the shadow rising from the depths of the unconscious, from the place where you banished it because you didn't know how to bring it into the light and integrate it. In modern psychology, this process is explained through the mechanisms of ego defenses, the ways we protect ourselves from uncomfortable truths. But Jung went much further. He saw the shadow not as something to defend against, but as an essential part of the soul's maturation process. You cannot become whole, cannot reach your full humanity by living only in the safe half of your light. You must embrace the darkness too. And Jung cautioned us about a dangerous trap. The brighter the light you try to project, the longer the shadow you cast behind you. The more you strive for perfection and flawlessness, the greater the risk of denying your full humanity, and the more likely you are to shatter completely when the shadow inevitably surfaces. Some people spend their entire lives being calm, controlled, and proper, only to break apart suddenly at a certain point, often after a shock, a loss, or simply prolonged exhaustion that cracks the facade. A loving mother raising her child with endless patience suddenly snaps at them over a trivial mistake, shocking herself. A gentle partner in a decade-long marriage one day packs their bags and leaves without looking back, unable to explain why. A model employee bursts into tears during an ordinary meeting over a routine comment from their supervisor that somehow pierces through. These moments are often dismissed as emotional outbursts, temporary breakdowns, or stress reactions. But for Jung, they represent something far more significant. the shadow finally breaking through the door you've kept locked for too long, demanding to be seen and integrated. This pattern is strikingly common in modern life. You see people today, often independent, rational, and intelligent, qualities that are genuinely admirable. Yet many carry an energy of excessive control, defensiveness, and underlying fear, shaped by old wounds carefully hidden beneath a socially applauded role. The more they deny their darker parts, their anger, their neediness, their selfishness, the further they drift from their authentic essence, from the true nourishment their soul requires. But something beautiful happens when people begin to embrace themselves fully, both their gentleness and their anger, their strength and their moments of selfishness, their light and their darkness. They start to become genuinely free for the first time. They no longer need to strain and perform to maintain a perfect version of themselves. They can open their hearts to those who genuinely want to be near them because they know they are whole beings, complex and real, not performances or personas. The problem is we're not taught how to face the shadow in our culture. Instead, we learn elaborate ways to avoid it, to pretend it doesn't exist within us. We bury our shadow with endless work and busyness. We fill the void it creates with relationships that distract us. We try to prove our worth through achievements and accomplishments that never quite satisfy. But no matter how hard you try to outrun it, there comes a moment when you feel profoundly empty inside. Even good relationships don't bring the peace you expected. Success doesn't feel like enough, doesn't fill the hole. Every night you lie down and feel you're no longer yourself. You're a stranger performing a role. That emptiness isn't failure. It's the call of the shadow trying to get your attention. Carl Jung once said something that cuts through all the spiritual bypassing and false positivity. One does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious. No one matures psychologically by thinking positive thoughts or pretending to be strong and unaffected. True growth requires the courage to shine a light on your inner darkness and look at it directly without judgment or rejection. That's precisely why prioritizing yourself, making space for your own inner work, is absolutely indispensable in any real healing process. If you're always chasing after others, seeking external validation, you'll never pause long enough to hear what's truly happening inside you, to listen to the quiet voices you've been silencing for years. People who carry deep wounds often fall into two common traps. They either avoid their pain entirely, staying perpetually busy and distracted, or they live completely immersed in their pain, making it their entire identity and story. But Jung offered a third path, a middle way, integrating the shadow, not rejecting it and pretending it doesn't exist, not drowning in it and becoming it, but facing it honestly as a genuine part of yourself that deserves understanding. This integration requires a rare level of honesty, the courage to admit without shame, I feel jealous of her success. I feel powerless in this situation. I'm genuinely afraid of being alone. Honesty so raw and undefended that you stop blaming others or justifying your reactions, and simply recognize with clarity, this is part of me, and it too deserves compassion and love, not rejection. Jung said the hardest part of integrating the shadow is taking full responsibility for the reality you're currently living. It's far easier psychologically to blame the external world, harsh parents who damaged you, a cruel partner who failed you, an unjust society that held you back. But Jung bluntly reminded us of an uncomfortable truth. The world will ask you who you are. And if you don't know yourself, the world will tell you who you are instead. If you lack the courage to look within and understand your own depths, you'll forever remain a victim of stories and identities written by others, never claiming authorship of your own life. But when you finally start listening to the neglected emotions, the suppressed desires, the rejected parts crying out for integration, you reclaim the power to write your own story. Only by stepping courageously into that shadowed space do you begin to remember who you were before the world taught you who you should be, before conditioning shaped you into something acceptable. When you stop hiding the shadow behind carefully constructed masks, when you stop performing endlessly to be loved and accepted, you begin to taste real freedom. And from that freedom, you can love others without needing to control them or manage their perception of you. You can live without needing to constantly prove your worth. You can fail without losing your fundamental sense of value and dignity. Prioritizing yourself is the essential prerequisite for this shadow work journey. If you don't carve out dedicated space and time to face your shadow, you'll never grasp the true source of your emotions, reactions, and suffering. You'll only ever treat surface symptoms, never touching the root cause that keeps generating the same patterns. And there will come a profound moment when, having found the courage to face your darkness and integrate it with compassion, you can no longer hold on to the things that once fed that darkness. You can't return to relationships or situations that require you to reject parts of yourself. Recognition of the shadow is the crucial first step. But true liberation begins when you dare to let go of what no longer reflects the person you're becoming through this integration. Number 3, daring to let go. There are things you cannot salvage or fix, not because you didn't try hard enough or love deeply enough, but because they were never truly yours to begin with. Never aligned with your authentic path. Some relationships can no longer be mended or restored, not because you lack patience or compassion, but because you've outgrown the version of yourself that originally chose them, that needed them. And there are dreams you once pursued with your entire being, dreams that at some point begin to feel constricting rather than liberating, not because you failed at them, but because you've come to know what genuinely aligns with who you are now, with your integrated self. Yet, letting go of what was once your anchor, your core belief, or a fundamental piece of your identity is never easy or simple. However, according to Carl Jung's psychology, letting go is not surrender to defeat, nor is it failure or giving up. Letting go is actually a profound act of love for yourself. It requires a different, perhaps deeper kind of courage than holding on does. The courage to admit honestly that what once mattered deeply no longer fits who you're becoming. In the process of individuation, which Jung considered the ultimate goal and purpose of psychological life, letting go is an absolutely indispensable step that cannot be skipped. Individuation isn't about becoming someone better or more impressive than you are. It's about becoming wholly yourself, unpretentious, undivided, and authentic. To evolve into that integrated, authentic self, you must release the parts that once helped you survive difficult times, but have now become burdens weighing you down. Like a cocoon that once protected the vulnerable caterpillar, if it doesn't tear open and fall away, the butterfly trapped inside will never emerge into flight. A woman who endured mistreatment to keep the peace, who strained and performed to be loved, who sacrificed her own needs to maintain the image of being a good person, may feel genuine pain when shedding those old protective roles. It can feel like betraying who she was, abandoning her former self. But Jung was absolutely clear about this. As long as you live according to others' expectations and definitions, you haven't yet begun to live from yourself, from your true essence. You cannot hear your authentic inner voice if you're still clinging desperately to the noise and demands from outside. Thus, letting go is ultimately a deliberate act, a conscious choice, choosing yourself over continuing to hold on to what silently kills your spirit. Consider a woman who's been in a relationship for over 6 years. There's no dramatic abuse or betrayal, no clear villain in the story, but neither is there genuine growth, deep connection, or real joy. Every conversation feels shallow and scripted, every date merely tolerable, something to get through. She feels herself slowly fading, no longer laughing freely, no longer vibrant and alive. Yet she stays year after year. In this case, Jung would ask a piercing question. What are you being loyal to? the actual person and relationship, or your fear of loss and being alone. So how can you practice individuation and truly let go of what no longer reflects your essence? Below are specific, practical approaches to guide you on this journey. If you're ready to begin, comment "I'm ready" below, and let's walk this path together. Practice 1. Dialogue with your inner self. Jung strongly advocated a technique he called active imagination, a purposeful, conscious dialogue with different parts of yourself. Try this. Write out a conversation between you and the part you're struggling to let go of. Whether it's a relationship, a role, an expectation that exhausts you, write as if you're speaking to a real person sitting across from you. You'll likely notice something remarkable happening. The part you fear losing begins to speak back, revealing why it clings to you so tightly, what needs it's been trying to meet. Practice 2. Observe what drains you without clear reason. Letting go doesn't always require a perfectly logical rationale or justification. Jung believed that emotions, especially unexplained exhaustion and depletion, are direct signals from the self trying to communicate. For 1 full week, carefully note down what activities, which people, or which situations make you feel least like yourself, most depleted. These observations may be crucial clues pointing to what you need to release, even if logic can't yet fully name or explain why. This is how Jung worked with his patients, not dismissing emotions to analyze them intellectually, but diving deep into them to find their signals and messages. The self doesn't speak in rational arguments and logic. It speaks in a particular kind of exhaustion, a draining of life force. You only understand its language when you stop trying to rationalize everything away. It's a quiet call from your deepest essence, signaling you've strayed too far from your center, from who you really are. If you truly listen, you'll not only let go of what drains you, but you'll also begin to reclaim the life energy you've been losing. Practice 3. Observe your recurring dreams with care. Carl Jung compared dreams to scattered fragments of the soul's forgotten map. In his view, no dream is truly meaningless or random. Each time you record a dream, you reclaim a piece of yourself that was lost. Step by step, dream by dream, you stop wandering lost in unconscious patterns. If you take the time to read your dreams, decode their symbols, and truly listen to their messages, you'll receive invaluable guidance for letting go, transforming, and becoming yourself. When you first wake, your mind lingers in that liminal space between two worlds, between the conscious and the unconscious. This is when dreams are clearest and most accessible to memory. Even if you recall only a small detail, just a color, a face, or a specific emotion, write it down immediately. Then begin to notice recurring symbols that appear again and again. Do you dream repeatedly of water, staircases, unknown strangers, or nameless places you can't quite identify? These repetitions are not coincidences or random mental noise. In Jungian analysis, symbols are how the unconscious conveys transpersonal messages from the deeper self. Keep a separate list of recurring symbols and note carefully the emotions tied to each one. Practice 4. Practice saying no and staying silent when it truly counts. In our noisy, demanding world, every single time you say no to something that no longer reflects your authentic self, it's a significant step toward individuation. Every time you choose to stay silent when there's nothing important to prove, it's a step back toward your essence, toward your center. Not everything requires your reaction or response. You don't always need to prove you're right, to explain yourself, to clarify, to justify, or to smooth things over and make everyone comfortable. In modern psychoanalysis, this represents the crucial shift from a defensive ego always protecting itself to the self, that stable, compassionate essence that remains unshaken by external reflections and judgments. Jung said clearly, "The self doesn't speak in words and arguments. It manifests in your energy, your stability, your depth of being. When you stay silent, at the right moment. It's not surrender or weakness. It's inner sovereignty. It's power. Letting go might mean finally ending a relationship that's been dying slowly. It might mean saying no for the first time after years of always agreeing and accommodating. It might mean stopping the exhausting effort to be the lovable, agreeable, endlessly considerate person others expect and need you to be. Not to become hard or bitter, but to become true to yourself, aligned with your essence. Jung didn't promise this process would be comfortable or easy. He called it the night sea journey, describing it as the soul's dark voyage through unknown waters. But in that darkness, in that descent, you begin to reclaim genuine agency over your life. Piece by piece, little by little, a different life unfolds around you. Not loud or dramatic, but real and solid. Not dazzling to others, but deeply free for you. Letting go isn't a loss, despite how it feels initially. It's actually creating space for you to become yourself most fully and completely. Letting go isn't just ending something outdated or harmful. It's a sacred act of transformation and rebirth. Jung believed every psychological system naturally seeks balance, constantly working to move toward wholeness and integration. If you persistently cling to a reality that no longer aligns with your essence, with who you're becoming, your inner